Hi, Jaspreet.
Hello.
Hi, I'm really looking forward to speaking to you today. I think the topics that we're going to discuss are really important,
Mhm.
and personally, I feel like not discussed enough.
I-
So, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, that'd be really good.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for having me, firstly. Really, really nice to actually connect with you. We've been like Instagram friends.
In almost real life, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, my name is Jaspreet Kaur. I am a fertility awareness educator. Essentially, that means that I help women track their cycles. I help women understand their menstrual cycle because it is not something that we are taught about, like in any way, shape, or form. Through this method of cycle tracking, it's done independent of any apps, any devices, any services. Like it's literally just you, your body, and a piece of pen and paper, which is really nice. So you really connect with your body in a deep way. And essentially, it's used for three situations. The first one is to track your fertile window so that you can get pregnant. The second is to track your fertile window so that you don't get pregnant. And the
Mm,
third one is just for general body literacy. So anyone who has a period, from, when you start your period when you're in your teenage years or younger, to, you don't need to be sexually active to learn this method, basically. If you have a menstrual cycle, whether it's regular, irregular, PCOS, endometriosis, you should learn this because the insights that you gain is essentially a form of data collection of your own body. So that is what I do. I teach women how to collect data of their menstrual cycle on a daily basis and figure out what's going on inside.
'cause that is really interesting. Usually you hear about apps and you hear about all these other ways of doing it, but I suppose being what you're speaking about more is like kind of being in tune with your body and
Exactly.
knowing what's happening. That's really interesting. But one thing that does come to mind when I think about discussing menstruation and fertility and all these things, did you come across um, kind of any obstacles in having this as your career path in the sense that cultural taboos, and I mean, I understand in terms of the South Asian community, there's certain perceptions about, you shouldn't really be discussing this kind of stuff. And, did you come up against much of that?
No
Oh,
one's
that's
ever said
interesting.
never. No one's ever said anything to my face. Like I've never
Right, okay.
had Instagram comments, I've never had messages, I've never said, oh, you look like this, you shouldn't be talking about this, never. And I think it just depends on like what you put out. I don't speak about things that are too, like I'm not gonna go onto Instagram and start talking about sex, for example. Yeah. That's something that I will talk about when the time is correct with my clients, in
Hmm.
personal space. But I will talk about periods and menstruation. And I think for most people, they can kind of see that it's coming from an educational point, and it's actually like, oh, do you know what, I didn't know that, this is really good. So I was always really intentional with the way that I spoke about it. So I think the reason that I haven't, no one's ever said anything to me, and I think it's because I tread quite carefully around this topic because I know it can be quite delicate.
Okay, so it is something that you're aware of, kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah, definitely aware of. Growing up Punjabi.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, this is something that actually affects so many people. I mean, even though I'm not in that field at all, you still hear so many stories
Yeah.
of problems that people are having. And like you say, spans from any age. So it's really quite interesting, and it's really interesting how you've managed to get over the fact that it can be seen as quite a taboo topic, but you've still managed to cover it so well and help so many people in the process. It's really quite inspiring, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think um so sweet that you say it, inspiring, because I'm just like, is it? But, like, yeah, and I think I think with understanding like who I'm speaking to, like understanding, like we were talking just before we started to record, right? And we were both talking about our kids, and I was just like, I'm just a hot mess, right?
Totally.
We're just a hot mess sometimes. Everyone's a hot mess sometimes. And I think when I'm talking to um my community, like on Instagram or through my emails and stuff, I know clearly who I'm talking to. And this person I'm talking to is like me, like a little bit of a hot mess, not like perfectly imperfect, but is willing to like go for it. So when I'm
Yeah.
speaking about this stuff, that's the kind of person I'm speaking to, and that's the kind of person that is resonating with what I'm saying. So in that way, I think it's been quite easy. There hasn't been that much resistance in any of it. Obviously, being South Asian, there is, taboos that come with it. But it's really interesting to think about where those taboos actually come from. Because for me, I mean, firstly, I don't, you don't have to talk about your first period experience, but I'm sure if you were to think about it, I mean, was it positive? Yeah,
Probably not.
it says it all.
Now that we've gone there.
Yeah. Like, e- everyone who I speak to who is South Asian, like South Asian women, first period, like 9 out of 10 of them will say, it was scary. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know who to turn to. I hid it. I thought that something else was happening to me. We don't know. We're literally left in the dark. And it's like,
Yeah.
how is that possible? So there is that stigma in the South Asian community. And that is a very real thing. I'm never going to try and diminish that. But where did it come from is really interesting. So for me, I remember from when I've been really young, whenever I'm speaking to my nanny, she's always been really open about things. Like very, I'm not going to go into it, but she's a very open person. My mum is the complete opposite. She's a very not closed person, but there's certain things that she's not going to speak about. Yeah.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, what's the difference between the generations? So my nanny was actually born in pre-colonial Punjab. My mum was born in colonial Punjab, moved to Britain when she got married. So like,
Mm.
so then do you know what I mean? And then you start to piece it together. So when we even think about like this taboo that is, with menstruation, with sex, with reproductive biology, like understanding our bodies and stuff, where does it actually come from? Like these are all very conservative Christian norms that we have adopted through colonization.
That is really interesting, really,
Yeah,
because sorry to interrupt, but just as you say that, I think about my nanny and my mum, and it's the exact same setup. My
crazy.
nanny's, yeah, she's very open. She will talk about these things.
Yeah,
She'll ask you these questions that you
yeah.
sometimes make you think, hang on. But my mum, on the other hand, is a lot more conservative, a
Mhm.
lot more, and it's like you have to be really, you have to, kind of tread carefully and see what the mood is like.
Mm.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I can see the light switch is just like flicked for you, right?
Yeah, it was. It was really like, oh, that's so interesting. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because a lot of the time we will, and I get why because it's frustrating, but it's really easy to be like, oh, being Punjabi is so annoying, or being South Asian, it is so irritating. Like, why can't I just do these things? But I think one of the a really important thing is to place it, to be like, do you know what? It's not my taboo to hold. It's not my
Yeah.
to hold. And once I figured that out, I was like, do you know what? Talking about periods online is easy because it's not my problem if someone has an issue with it. So when I trained as a natural family planning teacher, that's like the actual title, the type of training that I did. The people I trained with are actually, most of them are Catholic Christians. And that is because in the Catholic Church, so when a Catholic couple go to get married, they have this marriage course, yeah? Kind of similar to some Gurdwara do it as well. But within that, they teach you fertility awareness because they don't believe in contraception. Um, but I think that's so interesting that is literally it's a part of their like marriage curriculum that they learn this.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, you can see like how your nanny and your mum, like that, it's that same kind of that generational difference, and it is because we have adopted those more Western conservative norms through colonization. And once you part of the empowerment is not just the learning of like the technique and the method of fertility awareness, but it's also the understanding that, oh, do you know what, those limiting beliefs, that resistance that I'm feeling about my menstrual cycle or about my body, is not actually mine to hold. Even when it
Mm.
comes to like beauty standards, and once your body changes, once you go through puberty, and after you have children, and towards menopause, these like big life changes that we go through, your body will go through changes. But again, like my mum and my nanny, they've never thought that those things, my stomach is very different to what it was before I had a baby. I'm
Yeah.
never going to go back. But my mum and my sisters and my nanny have never made me feel that I need to like snap back. Those are
No.
also very Western
Western, yeah.
conservative norms, right? They're not ours. So I think that's a part
No.
of empowerment as well.
Yeah, I think that's a such a huge but subtle point at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, that there are so many differences in the cultures, in the communities, and just the way things are perceived.
Hmm.
And when you're kind of generally raised as a certain with a certain belief system, let's say,
Hmm.
and then you're kind of trying to fit into a totally different one,
Yeah,
it could just wreak havoc with your mental health, with
absolutely.
absolutely everything.
It's so confusing. And I think if we're able to start talking about menstruation openly from when young girls are actually starting their periods, and we can sit in a circle with, you know, mums, masia, young girls, and be like, do you know what? We've all gone through this, and it's normal, and it's actually it's not just normal, it's amazing. It's a superpower that we get to do this.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's amazing that we do. And here are the benefits of it. And the world is going to always tell you that it sucks to be a woman. And the world's going to always tell you that your period makes it hard for you to do X, Y, and Z. But here's why it's amazing to have a menstrual cycle. Here's why it's important to look after your menstrual cycle. Here's why it's important to nourish your menstrual cycle. It's so important. And within those same conversations, it's just like we spoke about, you know, through colonization, through patriarchy, we internalize so much. 9 to 5 working day is literally made with men in mind, yeah, because their
Yeah,
hormonal cycle is so different to ours. We are ebbing and flowing with nature. It's beautiful,
it
but
is.
in capitalism and in patriarchy, that's not beautiful. It's an inconvenience. Your menstrual cycle
It
is an
is inconvenience.
inconvenience because you cannot live the same day every single day like a man can. Yeah,
Yeah,
man, his testosterone will spike at 5 a.m. It will stay high until 4 p.m. and then go low. So what is that coinciding with? Literally the six, you know, you've heard these things, 5 a.m. club, 6 a.m. club, getting up at 6 a.m. to the
yeah,
gym, going to work. Another thing is like, you know, if you work in the city, happy hour is going to be between 4 and 6. Yeah, people are going out, networking, drinking. Testosterone is also at its peak at that time. Yeah, testosterone makes men confident. And if you are not going to these networking events at those times because, you know, you're in a certain phase of your cycle or you're bleeding, you're going to be labeled as, oh, she's just antisocial, or she's just, you know, she doesn't want to chill with us, she's just a bit snobby or
yeah.
whatever. It's not that. Your hormones are just different. So if we're able to sit actually like physically with young girls and teach them this is the first thing they're going to hear about their menstrual cycle. Can you imagine how empowering that would be to have those as your first thoughts of your menstrual cycle? I would feel so different about my body if that's what happened.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same. I mean, this is a really important point I feel for my daughter as well. I want her to have a totally different perception of this whole thing than I grew up with.
Mm.
And I want her to know and believe that it is an actual power that she has. And with with three brothers, she's, you know, she's kind of like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, she's like, how come this, mummy, and how come this? And so, you know, I really want her to believe that even within just our whole within our family structure, that
Yeah.
she does have, you know, powers that the others can't, or have it in a different sense of the word. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
No, definitely. It's so important to get them to understand that. How old is your daughter, if you don't mind me asking?
She's 7.
Oh, okay, cool. Yes.
Yeah.
It would make the world of a difference. You can so tell with families who are really open about this kind of stuff how their children
Mm.
grow up viewing their bodies with high self-esteem, with high confidence,
Hmm.
with not looking outside for, you know, am I normal? Is this okay? Like how most
Exactly.
of us
Yeah.
do, right? Like I always looked outside for validation, and sometimes I
Mm.
still do. And that's because I didn't have that confidence and self-esteem growing up. And I think, you know, having your menstrual cycle, which is something that is like, it's crazy how normal it is. It's just a physiological body function, and it's crazy how we just don't talk about it. It literally, I can't get my head around it. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's just it's one of the most natural things. Yeah, you made to feel so alien.
Yeah, honestly, it really is. It really is.
Do you feel that even like in the wider industry that you're working in, there are specific challenges faced by brown women in particular, in like Western healthcare,
No,
specifically regarding menstrual health, reproduction?
absolutely. I mean, so with the healthcare system, so when it comes to reproductive health, white women find it difficult too, right? To navigate that. So if white women are finding it difficult, what does that mean for black women and then South Asian brown women? In maternity services, so not even with like reproductive health, but maternity services, black women are 5 times more likely to die in childbirth. And that's not because they're more predisposed. Like it's not that their body and their
No, no.
birth canal is different. It's a social thing. It's because they are treated very differently. At the same time, white women do also face, like we can't deny that white women also face, but this is an issue of maternity services. It's a systemic issue. Yeah. All
Right.
women are subject to like a pretty difficult time when you're navigating maternity services. When it comes to reproductive health, when you're, you know, Benji, I can just tell you the amount of women and girls, I'm talking like 15, 16-year-old girls whose mums have got in touch with me because, they've got irregular cycles and they're getting pain and there's weight that they can't shift, or there's acne, all of these telltale signs that there's something going on inside the body, and it takes them about 8 years to get a formal diagnosis. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
And the amount that you have to advocate for yourself in that space. And it's not, like
Mm.
I said before, it's not something that is just happening to Black and brown women. It does happen to white women as well. But we do have that added layer of race that, it's our experience is still going to be a little bit different to white women, but it does happen to them as well. So I always say to people, and again, this is a part of the empowerment thing of your menstrual cycle, don't go into your healthcare provider's office with cotton wool over your eyes. You can't. And that includes
Mm.
maternity services. Fertility awareness, once you know what is going on inside your body and you are charting it and you're writing it down every single day and you understand what your hormones are doing, you're then going to be an active participant in whatever's going on. So say if someone does have PCOS, but they have been charting their cycle for 2-3 years, they know how many periods they're having a year. They know when they're ovulating or when they're not ovulating. They know what their estrogen and progesterone are doing. Yeah, these are really key things. So when you go into
Mm-hmm.
that doctor's office and they say, oh, there's no need to do this test because it seems like you're fine, you can say, well, do you know what? Here's my chart.
Mm.
See how much I'm ovulating or not ovulating. So now what do we do? Right? It skips so much and they take
Yeah.
it more serious. It's annoying that we have to do that, but it's important that we do, because going in with cotton wool over your eyes, you will get taken for a ride.
Yeah. I suppose that is just that industry in general with anything that you have these days.
Yeah,
If you don't know exactly what's going on and exactly what you want when you go into that appointment, you're probably going to get brushed aside.
absolutely. Western medicine is based on the premise that everything is an emergency, and it's not true. Western medicine
Mm.
these days is really heavily overused. Like, medication is overused. There is a place for medication. I think is, we're really fortunate that we have that option. But
Yeah.
in terms of just telling a girl if she's got PCOS, just take a pill, or fobbing her off, those aren't those aren't great choices, right?
No.
There has to be something more, and there is something more. There's always something more, but the issue is that you have to go and find that. Your doctor isn't
Yeah.
there for you, and that's, there's so many reasons for that. Not saying it's the doctor's fault, but as a system,
No.
it's
Yeah. Of
broken. The
course.
system is broken.
Yeah. That's, I think, one of the biggest things in that is kind of, apart from being able to go for help when you need it and not having cotton wool over your eyes, it's actually following your own instinct and intuition and knowing that something's not right here. And this is what I need help with. And I suppose if you can go in with that kind of, um, information, then again, it helps
Yeah,
move the
definitely.
process on and get the help that you need.
And you said about intuition as well. It's so important. Your body is constantly talking to you. Yeah. But
Yeah,
again, because we're always on the go, we won't always listen. So if you are having an irregular cycle or an extremely painful period, or, there's acne, or, you're going to know, what your body's baseline is, and
yeah,
if something is going a bit out of whack, get help. Do that thing. Even if it seems minor, even if it's not debilitating pain, your body's way of communicating with you is really important. So it's going to start tapping at you first. It's going to be like, hey, hello,
I'm
listen to
here.
me.
Yeah,
Something's going on. You're not getting a bleed every, 30 days, 32 days, or whatever it is for you. And then it's going to be like, okay, maybe like, acne on your cheeks or your back. So it's like, your hormones are doing something. And until it gets really far, we don't go to get that help. And maybe it's because we don't believe that we deserve the help. Maybe it's because we should just keep going because, oh, it's not that bad. But listen to your body. That's one thing that I would encourage everyone to do.
yeah. So, are there any kind of resources or any place you would advise women to go to get this kind of information, and somewhere where they can advocate or be advocated for?
In terms of like reproductive health, like
Yeah,
general.
menstruation, fertility, all these kind of things, instead of like, kind of going through the mainstream where they will inevitably face problems that actually makes their journey longer in terms of getting
Yeah.
help.
The first thing I would say is, if you have a menstrual cycle, learn fertility awareness. Learn it from a qualified teacher. If you're going to learn from a book, books are great. It's a great place to start, but there's always things missing. And if
Yeah.
you're sexually active, that means that, if you don't want to get pregnant, that could pose some issues. It needs to be
Yeah.
learned properly, especially if you're using it for contraception. So the first thing is to just learn fertility awareness and start tracking your cycle. Start knowing what your baseline normal is of your cycle, because everyone's is different. It's not going to be 28 days. You're not going to ovulate on day 14, and that's fine. You might have a 32-day cycle, ovulate on day 12. That's cool. Just figure it out and start to know what your normal is. So when something goes out of normal, out of range, you will know. Another thing, one of my dear friends actually told me this, that when she went to some of her doctor's appointments, she was getting diagnosed with PCOS. She took a friend with her so that she could, she didn't want to go on her own. And you can do that. You can take a friend,
Mm-hmm.
Anyone, a sister, a sibling, parent. You can take anyone who you feel safe around to go into that appointment with you and face that, because it can be scary. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm saying all this stuff, I still get nervous when I face, midwives, nurses, and doctors, because I'm like, what?
It could be quite daunting. Yeah.
It is daunting because they're very direct, they're very to the point, and sometimes it's difficult to, stand your ground. So every time I went to any of my appointments, my husband was with me, because even though I was saying all these things like, yeah,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? I can say all this stuff at home, but once I get into that office, I'm like, and it's
Okay then.
do we want, and it's a freeze and fawn response. Is what we are so conditioned to freeze and fawn as women. And
Yeah, God, it's so true.
go for it, yeah, do it. And he, like, I remember there was like times in my second pregnancy where he literally got up, took my notes from the midwife, and was like, "We're going out," and I was just like, "Okay," like who knows what would have happened? I would, my birth would have looked so different.
Yeah.
Just take someone with you. Take someone who you feel safe with you if you are going to go to a doctor's appointment, and know that you don't have to make a decision in that moment. Know that you can ask,
Yes.
what are the alternatives? If someone's telling you, say, what are the alternatives? Give me a blood test. And it might take you a couple of weeks to get that blood test, but advocate for it and be really firm in how you say it as well. It's so difficult
Yeah.
as women, as South Asian women, to like go into those spaces and make demands on
It
what
really is.
is so
Mm.
hard. So put things in place that'll make it easier for you. Sometimes what I would do is I would make notes on my phone so that I stick to certain points of like what I want.
Yeah.
So even if I like freak out, I'm like, okay, but just stick to the point here, right? And I'll share those with my husband or whoever's going to come with me. So just put things in place so that when you are entering that space, you're a little bit more informed, and you can make an informed choice rather than just going along with what the healthcare practitioner is telling you to do.
Yeah. That's a wonderful idea, having someone that you trust and that will support you when you go into these appointments. And it's so nice that you had your husband there to do that. It just reminds me of so many instances that similar things have happened. Like, I've gone, right, I'm going to say this to the health visit when she comes, or the midwife, and then she comes and say, but you do know this, don't you? And it's like, okay then. It's just like straight away. And my husband's like, hang on a second.
Yeah,
So it's happened so many times.
it's so hard to advocate for yourself. It's so difficult,
Yeah,
especially
it
when they
really
say
is.
things. When you're pregnant, is worse, because they will
Yeah.
they'll say they'll play the dead baby card.
I was going to say that, and I thought that might be a bit thingy, but I mean,
Oh, it's
there's certain,
true.
yeah, there's certain things that we've opted not to do through our pregnancies and
Yeah,
births, and even
yeah,
home births and things.
yeah, yeah,
And I've been told that if you don't do this, there's a risk of this kind of bleed, or this happening, or this happening, and
yeah.
it's like, and it's in that moment when your hormones are running high. And even in certain instances, I've been the one to say to my husband, look, this is how I want to do it, and he's gone, are you sure? And it's like, yeah, definitely. But when the midwife says no, but this can happen, then it's like, all right, I don't want to be responsible for that either. And in
Like,
that moment, you can't rationalize all the
hard.
information that you have and everything that you know. So I mean,
Wow.
again, super grateful that he's been there to say, no, remember, this is what you actually wanted. And then it's been like,
Yeah,
yeah, actually.
absolutely. And the thing with being in labour is that you are more vulnerable, if that's what you're talking about.
Mm,
But when you are in labour, you're a lot more vulnerable because your hormones are doing a lot, right?
yeah,
In labor, you want to be by yourself in, probably a dark room. Like if we think about animals, right, on a farm, it's really difficult to catch an animal giving birth, because if you're looking, they're not going to do it
no,
at
yeah,
all. They're going to hide away until it's dark, until everyone's gone, and then they're going to give birth. So why we are also mammals, right? Why are we any different? If you're going to be, if someone keeps coming up to you saying, "Oh, there's a risk that your baby's going to," of course you're going to you're going to do whatever you can to
Yeah.
help that situation, to help your baby that you've been carrying for X amount of months, right? So they know, they know, they know that. They know
Exactly.
that, yeah. The other thing is that when they're just saying stats of oh, there's this chance that this could happen. If you say to them, but what's the actual percentage? Usually it's 0.01%.
Yeah, that is a very good point.
And it's but in that moment, again, like you said, if you're by yourself, you cannot rationalize that because we freeze and fawn, because we just go along with things. So if you have someone who's a bit level headed, it's not happening to, and this goes for, going to get blood tests if you have regular cycles as well. You're in it as a person. So you're going to feel more emotional about what's going on. You're going to feel a lot more like, if I don't listen to what the doctors say, my period is still going to be like this. If I don't listen, I'm not going to get the help. If you have someone who's outside of it, but you trust, who can hold space for you, and is going in a bit more level headed, they're going to be able to advocate. And when you're, I can just imagine myself, if I was to be in that doctor's appointment and I'm trying to get a blood test and they're like, no, just go on the pill. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, okay, give me the prescription.
Yeah. They'll ring up again a week later.
Maybe I don't want to. But if I was to be like that, if I had someone
Yeah.
with me, they would be able to be like, hang on, this isn't actually what you wanted. This is what you wanted. So yeah.
Yeah, that topic alone, I think I could speak to you about for absolutely hours. I think we've spoken before about Ina May Gaskin and her books and stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, amazing.
That is my ideal, I would have said, for,
Really?
birth and breastfeeding and everything. In fact, it's quite a funny story that I'll share with you. But when I got married, I said to my husband, right, I'm not having a natural birth. I'm not breastfeeding. I'm not doing any of that stuff because
Wow.
it's not me. I'm just not doing any of that.
But what made you not want that?
It was just like, well, my body's going to change, and and I don't know how I'm going to cope with that. And these are all these thoughts and theories that I've heard over the years of my life. It's super painful. Every vision you've ever perceived of someone giving birth is someone actually screaming out loud.
Yeah.
Um, and all these stories. So I just thought, I put that aside. It's not something I have to deal with, even
Mhm.
though I want children.
Yeah.
But as soon as I got pregnant, I mean, literally, as soon as I got pregnant, I was like, right, I need to do all the research that I can. I read the Ina May books and I thought, I want a completely natural birth. I don't
Amazing.
want anyone there. I don't want midwives. It's like I went from one extreme to the
Yeah.
absolute other end of the extreme. It's like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm just going to go find a forest somewhere.
Birth underneath the bush. Sorry.
Exactly. I'm going to go free birth. I don't need
Yeah.
anything.
You went there. That's amazing.
I know, this lady was like, look, let's just taper this a little bit.
Got radicalized by Eva May. That's amazing.
Exactly. I know, it was a really wonderful experience, going through that. And now with all four of my kids, I've managed to, breastfeed them all, natural births. And it's just not something that before that point I would have even considered was for me, very
Yeah.
strangely.
The conditioning,
Um,
right? The conditioning
yeah,
is really,
exactly. That's the thing. Yeah. But yeah, and we went on to have two home births as well towards the end, which was nice, really, really nice experience and nice way to cap it all off.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, we're just not told the opportunities that are available to us and the natural way that it's actually meant to be. Like if you speak to my nanny and you talk to her about what birth was like,
Yeah. Same.
there's one woman in the village that would come and help you through it.
Yeah.
And then, everyone's rallying around to take care of you until you're, well enough to be back on your feet.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at the Western way of doing it, in hospital, you're giving birth that day, right? See you later. And it's just how, that's
The
just,
Western way is so backwards because same like my nanny when you talk to her, she's like, yeah, die on DC, that would
yeah.
come and she would massage you and then you'd give birth at home and then that's it. And then she'd massage you afterwards, look after you, give you all the food.
Mm,
Yeah, so that's how they would do it. And one thing my nanny always said is stay active whilst you're pregnant, and then
yeah.
afterwards you should rest. Yeah, stay active, keep moving. And in my towards the end of my third trimester, baby was breached. Um,
Right.
I'm not sure if he was fully breached, just in a bit of a funny position, basically. And they were like, "Oh, how they do, like just trying to scare me." And I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna."
Yeah.
So I literally remember getting on my hands and knees and scrubbing the floor. because I was like, I read somewhere that that's gonna like help the baby
Yeah,
as
move
well.
them around.
So,
Yeah.
Deepa told me as well. Deepa, she's a yoga teacher. She was like, yeah, I remember I did that. I was like, cool. Let me get on the hand. And literally, baby went
Oh, brilliant.
did this thing. But the thing is, what the doctors will say is, in your third trimester, rest, put your feet up, you know,
Mm.
chill, make sure you're resting enough, blah, blah. And then afterwards, for some reason, they're like, yeah, you've just had a C-section, crack on. You gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. How does that make any sense?
It doesn't make sense. Because the thing is, when in your third trimester, if you're sitting down a lot, like on a sofa, or just the positioning is not good for the baby, and for your pelvis, you need to be like on a ball, or like you need to be on
Mm.
a squat position, like something like that. You need to be like on all fours. You need to like have like an open kind of, I don't know how to explain. I can't really show it, but your hips need to be kind of open and your back needs to be straight. When you're going back on a sofa and like chilling, how they would say, put your feet up, the
Yeah.
baby positioning is not right. So that means that birth can, like, sometimes be a little bit more difficult. So if you're more active and then you take the and then you take the rest afterwards. So that's another way that like Western, especially maternity services, just does not make sense to me, because
No,
it just seems so, it's barbaric, man. How can you expect a woman who's just given birth to
that
like,
is the right
hey,
word.
crack on?
Yeah, get
Oh,
your taxi home or however, get home. You've got to
just
leave
get
now.
home,
We
you
need the
gotta go.
beds. Yeah, it's just mad.
It's horrible.
Yeah. So there's one other question I wanted to ask, and it's kind of related, but slightly to a tangent. Um, but do you in all of your work through the kind of fertility mentoring, working through periods and things, do you think that a lot of this stuff is actually misunderstood by brown communities? And how do you think cultural pressures and other things affect family planning?
Yeah, I think it is misunderstood. Um, when it comes to family planning, one of the things that's really misunderstood is that we aren't actually fertile all the time. So you can't just have sex and get pregnant. As women, we're not fertile 24/7, 365, unlike men, who literally from puberty up until death, they are fertile. Within our cycle, for about 6 days per cycle, that's the only time that we can actually conceive. A lot of women will, be trying to get pregnant and miss that window.
Right. Okay.
And they might think that for like 6 months, oh my gosh, I can't get pregnant. But it's just that they don't understand when that fertile phase is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I mean, there's obviously only a short period of time actually when you're ovulating either side of that.
Literally. It's like,
Yeah.
so you ovulate. Ovulation, is one event. It occurs within like 12 to 24 hours and it's done. But your cervical fluid, it elongates that 12 to 24 hours till about 6 days, depending on your cycle, maybe like 4 to 6 days. And that's the only time you can get pregnant, 4 to 6 days each cycle. So if you miss that window, you can't get pregnant until your next cycle. It doesn't mean you can't get pregnant
Next month.
ever. But
Yeah. Exactly.
people
It's
are like,
just
oh, I don't know how to, I can't, maybe I'm infertile, maybe maybe there's something wrong with me. It's not that there's something wrong, it's just we don't know how to pinpoint that time. And then a lot of women will go for
yeah.
ovulation predictor kits. Um,
Okay.
but it says it in the name, it's a prediction. Whereas with fertility awareness, it's all in real time. So if you learn how to read your body through fertility awareness, you're going to know on any given day, am I fertile or am I not?
Yeah.
Whereas with an ovulation predictor kit, it's literally predicting it for you. And if you have PCOS, your hormones are going to be imbalanced. So with that ovulation predictor kit, it might always tell you that you're fertile.
Okay.
So one of the things with PCOS is sometimes it can present itself as having a high LH level.
Okay.
LH is one of the hormones that works with estrogen to make ovulation happen. But in PCOS, sometimes women can have elevated LH levels all the time. With an ovulation predictor kit, what it's doing is testing for that
Yeah.
LH
It runs
level,
by
right?
that.
Yeah. But if you've got elevated LH levels all the time, it's going to keep telling you you're fertile, but then you can't get pregnant. So if with PCOS, you can actually just tell when you're really ovulating through your biological signs, through taking your basal body temperature, through observing your cervical fluid, then you're actually going to be able to pinpoint it. And another thing that that's good for is then you can see when your period's going to come. So even if it's irregular, Even if it's not every 30 days or whatever, you're still gonna know that, okay, I've ovulated, now I've got this many days until my period comes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing. It's really, really amazing to learn that skill.
That's really good. So would you say that apart from the actual family planning, do you think
Yeah.
there are any other misconceptions within our community around the whole area?
I
Or
don't
is
even.
that kind of like the biggest one?
No, do you know what? I'm just trying to think. I don't actually think it's a community thing. I
Okay.
just think it's an
It's a
overarching.
wider thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've taught, I've taught mainly Punjabi women, but I've taught quite a few white women as well. But they're the same. Like, and again, it's because of the patriarchy. We are not afforded the opportunity to learn about our menstrual cycles, and that is because of patriarchy. Because
Mm.
if men had menstrual cycles, my God, the world would be so different. Like,
It would.
it would be so
It would
different.
be on hold for
It
a
would
whole week every
be.
month. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they would be paid leave at every single corporate job. Corporate jobs wouldn't even exist. It would be like work with your cycle. It would be so different. It would be so unbelievably different. So I think it's not even just a community thing. This is an overarching thing for women. Women
Yeah.
do not understand their cycles. And it's funny because every time I say, I onboard a new client, I'm like, right, how much do you know about your menstrual cycle? They're like, yeah, I understand it. I'm like, "Cool, tell me." And they're like, but it's fine. But there's a lot of shame around admitting that you
Yeah.
don't actually know about it. And I think that's because it's something that happens to us every single, so many
Mm.
times in the year, we are having, we're cycling all the time. We're constantly having a menstrual cycle, right? But we don't know what's going on. For most women, like for me, I can tell you, I'm in my luteal phase. I'm on cycle day. Where am I? I'm on day 22. um I know that what my hormones are doing. I know right now I'm going to feel a little bit more sleepy. I'm going to need slightly
Mm.
more calories. I'm going to need like more restorative kind of movement. But I know all of that stuff about me because I've been tracking my cycle. But if you ask any other woman, whether she's South Asian, black or white,
Yeah.
she might not know. She might just be like, "Oh, I've had a really tough week because X, Y, and Z," and attributing it to so many other things. But once you actually understand your cycle, you're able to put things in place to make all these changes and the ebbing and flowing of our hormones a little bit more seamless, and there's
Yeah.
less resistance in your life because of that. One of the biggest things, Benji, and this is actually more with the South Asian and the Punjabi women particularly, is that they don't take we don't take time out for ourselves.
Mm.
Sorry, my little
Yeah.
one's waking up. I keep looking at the thing.
Oh, no
We don't
problem.
make time for ourselves, and that means that our symptoms of things like PMS are worse
Mm.
because we're not taking time out to do anything that brings us joy. We're just constantly go, go, go. We've got to do something for the kids, we've got to do something for the house, got to just constantly doing something. So that's one thing that I've noticed with more with our community, definitely.
Yeah, I suppose there's a misconception as well that the only time that you're going to be slightly off kilter is when you're actually on your period. But
Yeah,
really, there's that whole thing about seasons as well, isn't there? There'll be certain
yeah,
times in the month where you feel productive or where you need more rest or you need something different. And if you're in tune
absolutely.
with your body, you'll be aware of all these things.
Absolutely. So during that fertile period of, those 4 to 6 days, you're going to be feeling your best because estrogen is at its highest. And estrogen is what I like to call your rose tinted glasses. It makes you feel
Okay.
amazing. It makes the world look amazing. Like you can do everything. And we have a lot of energy during this time, but that's only 4 to 6 days. It's not a long time.
Mm.
Yeah, he's so
Yeah.
with the estrogen is your rose tinted glasses. And then once you've ovulated, we have a surge in progesterone, and progesterone is the complete opposite. It's the no BS hormone. Basically, it's
Hmm.
going to be like, okay, you've neglected all of these things. Like during ovulation, you can leave your house a mess. You can be like a whirlwind. You can be doing it all, and it's like water on a
Yeah.
duck. Nothing's going to bother you. The dishes are in the sink. Who cares? There's laundry on the floor. Doesn't matter. And then
Yeah. I'll see
once
to it
you've
later.
ovulated, yeah, literally, once you've ovulated, progesterone comes in, and it's kind of like, hang on. You've neglected all of this stuff now. Fix it.
Yeah.
Fix it now. And that's why a lot of the time we all feel this urge to like clean or do things like do really big tasks like reorganize our wardrobes or it's basically a period of nesting.
Yeah, that
um
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
it's the same hormone that's present when we are pregnant. So towards the end of pregnancy, when you'll nest for the arrival of new baby, you'll get everything ready. We do the same thing
Yeah.
in preparation for our period bleed, so that when we bleed, the idea is that we get all of these niggly little tasks done so that when we are bleeding, we can rest and we can actually
Yeah,
allow
that's
the
it's such a clever system as well, isn't it? I mean, if you look at it naturally and what it's there and the purpose of it, you know, it's just so wonderful in so many ways, isn't it?
It is so wonderful. And if we could teach young girls to think of it in that way, like it's really, really wonderful, it would be so good.
Yeah. So I'll ask you one more question if that's okay, then I'll let you get on the little one.
Of course.
Um, so as a fertility awareness educator, and someone that's, you know, trying to change the narrative in the menstruation and fertility field, would you have any advice for other brown women that are striving to make a difference in their communities and trying to do something, you know, to help communities move forward or generally improve others' lives, let's say?
In what kind of context? In terms of like reproductive health?
I mean, in any context, like, so for speaking as someone that is an educator and someone that has created, you know, a business that you have in
Yeah.
terms of helping people, basically
Hmm.
helping to change the way they perceive something that has been so long standing.
Hmm.
Um, so how would you inspire other people to make changes in their particular um, kind of industries or whatever that they're working on in that space?
I would say go for it. Do it. Go whatever it is that you're passionate about, do it. For me, I am super passionate about fertility awareness, about reproductive health, and that's purely because it's just something that resonated with me because I
Yeah,
saw so many people going on the pill for no reason. I've seen so many women have terrible birth experiences for no reason, and it's
yeah,
something, that really resonates with me. So if you want to, make a change in your community, find something that resonates with you and something that, makes you want to wake up in the morning. Don't do anything half-hearted. Find that thing that literally drives you, and do it. Take little steps every single day. And like I said at the beginning, I'm a hot mess. I'm perfectly imperfect, like, but I'm willing to just try it. So let go of expectations that everything's going to be amazing and you're going to change the world in one day. You're not.
yeah. It's a
Start with your
journey, isn't it? It's
It's a
a very
journey.
long process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
start with yourself, and you'll be surprised at how impactful even a ripple effect is. Have those
Mm,
conversations and be unapologetic in it. Don't be like me where you're a little bit scared sometimes and you go into freeze and fawn. Be unapologetic with what you do, and have fun doing it, because we've all got a superpower. We've all got a little bit of magic within us. We've all got a gift to give to our communities. I think we hold ourselves back. So don't let your limiting beliefs come in and hold you back. Just go for it.
yeah, don't listen to them.
We don't listen to them. You got this, girl. That's what I would really say.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been really, really nice talking to you, and it's been really informative as well. That's one thing I love about following you as well on Instagram. I've actually learned so much, and the information is really, really helpful.
I'm so glad.
Um, so thank you so much for speaking to me.
Thank you.
And we'll have to catch up soon.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me, Benji. It's been a pleasure.
No, no problem. Thank you very much. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.